Salty old sea captain, he made his last voyage. It was supposed to be a celebration. It was supposed to be a time when they were going to commemorate his having served the seas for 70 years. As a boy, he learned young about sails and knots, spent his life on the wharf, and that led to, of course, commanding the craft himself at the appropriate age. His work took him a lot of very unusual ports of call, back when ports of call meant something besides a t-shirts and the usual stuff you find. And it was the exoticism of those brief but very intense encounters with native peoples, different languages and customs, and always the fear of disease, some kind of new malady that they might bring onto the ship. Such as, I'm not scurvy is the obvious thought, but I'm talking like smallpox and whatnot. So they were very careful, or at least concerned about the possibility of an outbreak. And that limited somewhat their interaction with the local peoples, but not the horse. And therefore the usual venereal filth was found along the wharves. So this voyage, though, the voyage that we were originally talking about, the last voyage, was really about, it's supposed to be a celebration of this man's life and, the sea captain, because he was retiring. This was his last voyage. But in the excitement over the trip itself, and this is something where when they went to different ports of call, he did not want to leave because he wanted to say, spend an extra day or two, in essence, saying goodbye to that city, such as Rosalia or Old Ceylon and Mumbai, which was at that time Bombay. And so he would stay longer. If they had provisions for 3 days, they stayed for 5 days. So after weeks, they were running very low on provisions, and it was not a matter of just stocking up at the next port of call, because what they had to bring aboard in terms of perishables was limited to usually grain, flat bread, and these were Mediterraneans who were much more familiar with, finer provisions. And certainly not flat, unleavened bread. The unusual part about it wasn't one of these situations where it was a do or die. They weren't under physical duress. The people aboard the ship were of they were there to have a good time, and so the tone of the cruise was very upbeat. However, the shortage of materials was noted by two of the storekeepers, or the ones who were in charge of the magazine, the stores, and they didn't want to tell the captain because of that very reason. It would be, not only would it be their jobs, but he himself, the captain, would have lose face, so to speak, borrowing the Asian term. So there they found themselves adrift, with no food, no water, torn sails. And would you believe even the weather didn't cooperate? It was foggy, and they were off the coast that was known for its shipwrecks. Suddenly they heard a bell ringing off in the distance, and they thought that it was land, and that the Christians fell to their knees and wept, "Land ho!" And each of them kind of envisioned what they were going to do when they finally reached terra firma. However, through the clouds, they saw not land, but a very bizarre trio of lights dancing off the coast of this mythical island. It was as if they had wandered into a different breath, someone else's breath, an ancient breath. And everything about this place and time had changed. It was as if it was going back into time. I mean ancient time. 10,000 years plus time. Where it was so ancient that the voyagers aboard the ship thought they themselves were considered highly advanced. And sure enough, the island finally revealed itself to them. It just materialized, and it was something of a very... It was a mysterious landscape, one they hadn't seen before. I guess the closest thing that we could say how to describe it would be atomic, tropical, radioactive, clime, radioactive, tropical. As if you're in Hawaii, only the air is alive with electrons escaping their masters. And would you not be acclimated to that highly toxic environment, you would have perished. Our voyagers they didn't interact with that. They were still on their ships. And that was when they decided to investigate these trio of lights that they had saw disappearing behind tropical shrubbery. 1, 2, 3 went right off. They waded ashore, as careful not to get too dirty. So when they'd meet their new friends, they'd be able to show them a little bit about their Mediterranean customs. The island, of course, was used about 100 years ago for atomic testing. Henceforth, it's called the Atomic Island. And various nuclear devices were detonated there. And subsequently, the entire ecosystem had changed. It was as if the island had been a she, and the end product was a she-he, or some kind of I don't want to say hermaphrodite, but some kind of a duplicity or a dualism, and certainly that would bleed over to the gender of what it was. And everyone who lived on the island was subject to that same kind of pansexual confusion. And also, in order to remain radiation free or toxicity free, they'd had to do various rituals and anoint themselves accordingly. Oh, this is over a matter of 100 years. And it had kind of boiled down to that it was necessary to mate with a holy primate that was known for its therapeutic value. And this primate was subsequently adorned with various trinkets and costume and holy oils, and was kept in a cavern. This is how they communicated. It was telekinesis, though not too much was made of this, because telekinesis is a seamless experience. And so the mariners and the humanoids had this remarkable bond, because they shared the immediacy of what they were saying, seeing, and hearing. And they had to mate with this primate, largely against their will. But it was the only way that they were going to be able to live. The trek through the forest is a long one. It's not easily done in a day. But one day is all that they had, lest they fell ill to the atomic forces. This island provided some sort of new music. It wasn't the kind that they had been used to, the lyre, the drum, the brass. This was the kind of music that penetrated their most inner thoughts, fears. This was the kind of music that was always playing in their mind. The island was alive. The island was alive. And the visitors got the impression that they themselves owned is the wrong word, but they possessed elements of the island that they knew to be eternal. So there was some kind of a soul effect happening here, and the immediacy of the telekinesis only exacerbated this experience. However, the more they got into the forest, the more they realized that on the radio was hystericism. The built-in radio offered checkpoints, monitoring, gunpoint, malaise, fed by some kind of ignoble desire to maim. The sun went down. They had no other choice but keep going. In darkness, nurtured by a reaction, shrill, a cosmic shock, an adolescent reticence, a shame to keep going, keep moving. That which ancient aims dictate. They make their way through the clearing. The air is thick and wearable, like an impossible tropical smock. The sea captain on his last voyage realizes he has gone too far. How many years has he sailed past these trinket jewels of islands without venturing a tender? and now with the kind of bravura reserved for a Spanish grandee, he steps through the clearing at the ritual slaughter that is taking place. One of his men has tangled with the natives. It's Mullins, trying to make a name for himself as a future scout. All for naught, he is lost, clubbed, lost, unused to do the sacrifice of barbarian ritual. The sea captain flinches just a tick along the jawbone, giving over to fear. Jimmy is knocked unconscious, and his skin is removed. "Monster killers!" the captain bellows, parting the vines. He draws his sword, a 10-inch mandingo, with serrated edge made of steel. It's too late to save Jimmy Mullins, but in the chaos that follows, the captain is thrust center stage, and himself must stab and claw for the dignity of the white man and the mariners specifically. Cutting forward, blood mixing with brine. The captain realizes most of the killers are women, and worse, beautiful women at that. His energetic ballet of death is thrown off, as if by a pulled tendon or overworked muscle, by the sight of so much animated, wanton flesh. His mind returns, as often does during times of crisis, to his childhood in Yorkshire, and the girl he knew there, the blonde with the chipped tooth, and how she chided him. Were these naked creatures as ruthless as she? And how could he strike down either image? Well, pausing to solve this impossible drama cost the captain everything and more. He was sprung upon, the captain was, by the very she-cats he was trying to make tame, and he, like Jimmy, stripped soon of his clothes. "Avengers, avenge!" bellowed the captain of the seafaring race. Only his cries fell on deaf, retreating ears. Witnessing the bloodshed, worse, their master, without clothes, caused a mutiny among the small band of men who had traveled this way with him. And suddenly the captain found himself so very much alone. Darkness fell and the fires were lit. The captain, bound, was presented to a single tent, his knees knocking, face soiled, and cock looking all but certain. The devil girls retreated when the captain was placed successfully before the thatch-domed hut. From within, a curious screech was heard. It wasn't as though the she-devils go back to their she-chores. If anything, their silence and their stillness is in itself a call for death. The captain writhes, curses, as the flap of the mud hut twinkles so, and a glorious she-goddess emerges. It is, as on this last voyage, the captain meets face to face with the woman he's been chasing across the seas. She is his sparkling muse, tenfold over Gauguin. Young, nubile, though immediately ancient, she steps from her queen's hut with a scowl. "Mambawa! Manaka! Utwa! Kinkinbawa!" And with so much as only a glimpse of her beauty, the captain is dragged by the she-devils and placed in a broiling pot. The pot is round and hot, minutes away from boiling. He fights but cannot escape the inevitable splunk. and screams, which he does not mask as the screams of a girl, the lass from Yorkshire, finally giving way. But like a true commander, the captain exaggerates his injuries, less so from vanity than strategic scrutiny. His floating there in the pod has caused the goddess to move forward, and she does, in open robe, an elongated thumbnail quick at her teeth. "I'm surprised you speak my language," is what the salty sea captain said to the exotic native woman. She gave him that look, like somewhat dismissive. Majesty, she replied finally in a kind of smirk. "Are you the queen of these she people?" The goddess failed to answer. She just stood there. And instead of answering him, her gaze, simply bore right through him. And for a brief moment, the captain was afraid of being capsized. Capsized in a way by the anonymous power of this noble dark creature. So he averts his gaze just in time before falling for that eternal yes, the sort of yes that men and women share after a pause, at the threshold of hypnosis. He allows himself to be, and she says, "You stay, not harmed." And he knows then that he is in the realm of the enchantress. The enchantress beckoned, and by her overflowing beauty, the sheer physical grandness of her style, when you approach the harmony and the precision, sort of the mathematical precision of beauty found on native isles, they're not like what we know as Western ideas of grandiosity or elaborate ornamentation. It's ornamentation, but it's also ornamentation by simplicity and symbolic import. The sheer physical grandness of her style, the Queen Ma'ahuana provided in the captain, in that dim region known as his heart, a warmness that reminded him of a life spent on the seas. Here he was in this moment, realizing that here in this one person he's discovered the sea incarnate. And it was with the same vigor, the same sail-cutting brilliance, and the sun in the water, and his eyes, within the realm of her eyes, that his affection pursued its course. And he approached her with a kind of haughtiness, and yet with the knowing that at some level he would sublimate to mystery. And this was sort of what he realized in this crystallized moment, what he was missing in his life, and that was mystery, or mystery defined. And all this within a few chance encounters with Queen Mahawana. And to chart their story would be to open up another level or chapter of experience about another level of living that is more, that has different, even mathematical qualities that would solve or answer to the larger ancient mysteries, such as what we've experienced with Easter Island and Teotihuacan. He entered the realm now as undefined, sparkling creature, and he simply vanished within her loveliness. A relevant way to end this portion of the journey in a sparkle of mystery and irrelevance. Thank you.